Get ready. It's time for the Me and Jesse podcast with Mark Pavlich and Jesse Martineau.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Me and Jesse podcast. My name is Mark Pavlich, and across the way in the Grove, the star of the show, everybody, the very tanned.
Is it tanned
Jesse Martineau.
or tan?
It's tanned.
Or tan.
Oh, geez. No,
I know.
think it's
They're
tan.
both acceptable, I think.
What? I don't know.
You know what's not acceptable?
What is it?
The way the PGA Tour has treated Brooks Koepka.
Oh.
Dude, what the hell is going on with the PGA? If they're, okay, and again, I'm not all about, like putting all the blame on like rich old white dudes. I'm not about that. However, the rich old white dudes down at the old PGA clubhouse need to hire someone in their mid-30s that have, been around and done some stuff, have talked to some people, have, a TikTok account maybe themselves.
Yeah.
Because the way that Brooks got treated at winning a major tournament, by the way, is that guy on or is that guy on? Like everything that guy swings at right now is incredible.
Hey, they better get ready because he's going to win the U.S. Open now.
Dude,
next.
I hope
that he's going to do it.
And complaining putting it on the guys. I don't know if anyone's been watching, but the Live Golf PGA thing. Mark and I have been very vocal about this. We're very big proponents of Live. Largely because it makes.
Tell people why.
Largely because it's forcing the PGA to have to be better. But
correct.
Which I thought they were doing. We actually talked about that. We thought maybe they're going in the right direction. But when you watch the footage, and it's all the clips have come out now from the last major, and the way Brooks got snubbed, and then some weird comment got sent to him, and he's like, "What, bro?" And then the interview, not with him, but to a PGA guy and another guy talking about the Ryder Cup, and they're, oh, well, maybe they could play. And the guy's like, no, they just want to play golf for their country. Like, they don't care about Live or PGA. Like, they want to play for their country, man. They want to play golf. And
Jesse, when did America ever care about what's what?
I know.
Are they the biggest country in the world that cares about one thing and one thing only is winning?
Yes.
They could give a rat's ass about Live or this or that. So you have to take yourself out of it and say to yourself, okay, who's making the final decision here? Because if Koepka's not on the team, okay, just scrap that point or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it is, right? Because he's clearly one of the top 3 players in the world right now.
Oh, he's golfing unbelievably.
Yeah,
and
no
it's
question.
so clean. But again, that's a great point with America. Like, when have they cared? Like, you look at the NFL and stuff. Like, they don't care. They don't care about who's done what. They just want to win. And if you put that on a national or a world stage, come on now. That should be a lock. Brooks, Dustin Johnson,
Dustin Johnson
even DeChambeau. That was a great troll that DeChambeau had his old Ryder Cup umbrella out. I was like, okay, that's funny. And I'm not a huge
the three of them.
fan, but they have to be there.
Jesse, there's a reason why Live Golf signed those 3 guys.
Yes, there is.
Because not that they can hit the ball a mile, not that they're very good at everything. All 3 of them, okay. But if you take the best 3 players in the world and you put them against Koepka, Dustin, and DeChambeau, the problem is you take the other 3 best players in the world and put them against. I put money all day long that team beats that team. Yeah. I don't care who you get. Listen, let's remember, Rory McIlroy's not American, everybody.
Yeah,
okay,
McIlroy isn't there. He's going.
So you take the top 3 other guys beside Brooks and DJ and DeChambeau, and you're gonna have a big problem. Okay, so you guys can all dissect it any way you want. The only one that's acted with any class during this whole process is Koepka.
Yeah.
He's the only one that's kind of went like, hey, namaste, everybody. Yeah. I'm just going to keep playing golf. I'll see y'all at the U.S. Open when I win again. Yeah. When I win again.
I love it. I love it.
And then, bro, you know what course suits him the best, in my opinion? The British Open.
Right.
Because he could just blast the ball wherever. There's no trees.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I mean, the rough, you got to keep it in the fairway. But
correct.
Still, yeah. Dude, I just don't get why, nobody's talked to these guys. Like they obviously have a board. Obviously, they're all on the same page with the PGA because they're not really clamping it down. Now, I want to point out the similar situation, and we obviously love Formula One here, and Damon Hill, who was multi-world champion, won multiple races, great career, becomes broadcaster, but has a clear hate for Max Verstappen. He loves Lewis Hamilton, always has. He's British. I don't blame him for that. But when you're on air and you watch a guy dominate, and then you still trash him and call him a baby in front of everyone, you haven't seen him for 3 weeks, have you?
It's deplorable, though. It's deplorable what he did because, listen, I'm a Mercedes guy, okay? Yeah. It doesn't matter. Greatness is greatness. I can't deny greatness. Like, you understand? That would be so fake of me. Listen, I'm not technically a hater for anything in this world, including the Toronto Maple Leafs, which I mean, what I'm trying to, you get what I'm saying? Yeah. If the Toronto Maple Leafs would have won the Stanley Cup this year, I would have ate it with a spoon and said they were fantastic.
Yeah, they did it.
But Max is literally redefining racing, and he drives with a set of balls the size of bull. Like, it's crazy.
When you're in Monaco, it starts raining, you have like a 24-second lead, and you're still power sliding around corners, pushing it.
Listen,
you're like, dude, you don't have to do this.
He doesn't.
And he's like, no, I'm putting it on everyone.
But Jesse, his team must be just gasping when he's doing it, right?
Dude,
because
I'm like, oh my god, like why?
Max, but you know what? I can't deny his greatness, and I'm like a fan of Max now as a team member of Mercedes, but I'm super vocal on what's going on in Mercedes right now because. For fuck's sake, someone show these guys where the gas pedal is. You know what I mean? Like, you're fourth and fifth every time.
I think that they do have, like, I actually do think they'll get third, maybe second in this, because the upgrades they brought obviously weren't showcased really well at Monaco because this is a weird track. But the next one, I think they might actually go back
you can't pass.
Yeah, you can't really pass. You can't unleash it. You're only full throttle for just about a third of the track. So you can't really see it yet. But they obviously have changed a lot and gone to what more conventionally like everyone else is doing, which should help. And you still have Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, which are great drivers. So you do have a big shot of going and doing something. I think they can actually pull second out of this thing because Lance Stroll at Aston Martin is horrible, and he's Canadian, and I'm glad he's Canadian. But
I know
when your dad owns the team and you shouldn't be there, it's very evident. But anyway, I my point with that all is I get it. Like I'm. And I hope to talk about this with our guest today too. But I really want transparency in reporting. But if you're gonna say something, say it.
Correct.
Like, say it the way you feel. This is how I feel.
But don't you notice that in reporting though, Jesse? Now what's happened? It's really weird how when you see people reporting, it's not reporting for real. In the NHL, you can only say so much because if you cross that proverbial line, your press credentials will be stripped from you. If you're at the UFC, listen to me, hey, man. Dana White smacked out his wife, and nobody in the real world of reporting besides Ariel Helwani and maybe one or two other brought it up.
Who did we have on a few weeks ago? That got his credentials banned from, he's in LA. His name just slipped me. With the Los Angeles football club.
Josh Gross.
Yeah, Josh Gross. And he got his credentials stripped off him from the UFC as well.
And Josh is legit. Like I'm talking, he is legit. Great reporter. He was around MMA. I was around before he was around, so I always knew who he was, and he was a legitimate reporter. But the problem was he was a reporter, and he didn't care about his press credentials. Everybody has to watch.
Our guest is here tonight. We'll be right back on the Me and Jesse podcast after this quick break.
Spring is here. It's time to shed those coats and get smooth for all the fun ahead. Heading to the beach or just enjoying the sun, Backscape is the answer to a smooth, bump and cut-free spring. Worried about asking for help? Fear not. You can effortlessly make you smooth without assistance. And guess what? Their new subscription service sends you fresh precision shaving heads straight to your door. Subscribe, save, and stay smooth all season long. So don't wait and get Backscape today and enjoy the smoothness of spring. Spring is here. It's time.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Me and Jesse podcast. I am Mark Pavlich, away in the Grove, Jesse Martineau, and our special guest today, everybody. Are you ready? He looks intelligent, doesn't he?
Yes,
he does. UFC reporter for TSN, everybody, the one and only Aaron Bronsteter.
Thank you, sir. You know, Mark, I think it was you who said something to me when I met you. I met you for the second time because I met you in a different role that I had at TSN prior to that. But when I saw you in Edmonton, you said something along the lines of, wasn't sure about you at first, but then I could tell you knew your stuff. And that always, to me, it sounds like a backhanded compliment, but I actually think it's the ultimate compliment. Because to me, what it means is I won you over. You might not have thought much of me at first. You might not have known, what's the deal with this guy. But, if I'm able to be professional and be knowledgeable and people are able to pick up on that, I always appreciate that. So thank you.
Aaron, I believed it, though, because I watch everybody and listen, this is the only category that technically I don't have to study for today, but I still did. But what I'm saying is I don't have to study for MMA. Like, we have people on from the UFC, we have people on from everywhere. I don't have to study when it comes to MMA. So when I watch someone, I'm trying to actually see, like, where did you come from, Aaron? Like, that's the question I want to know today, is because I'm like, you're super knowledgeable, you interview great people, you ask great questions, but I'm like, how did you appear in the MMA world? Because one day you were there, and then one day you weren't there, and then all of a sudden you were. And I'm like, I know everybody in the MMA world. Okay, everybody. Even I've been out of the business for 10 years, and people still message me on a daily basis asking me, Mark, bring back the MFC. Mark, why aren't you doing something in the MMA world? And I'm like, no, but where did you come from?
Yeah, I had a very unlikely roadmap to covering the UFC. And while you were doing MFC, I was watching it on HDNet and Access TV, as it was then known as back in the day. So I've been a long time fan of this sport before I started covering it. So I guess I'll give you my roadmap. I started off as a producer for a late night radio show on Sirius XM radio called Sports Rage with Gabriel Morency. I don't know if you know Gabe.
Oh, I do.
Yeah. He's like a long time, well-known sports personality here in the Great White North and abroad because, again, he was on Sirius XM, still is on Sirius XM, so he has a pretty big audience.
Cool.
And I produced from 11 p.m. till 2 a.m. That was my first job in the business, first full-time job, was producing that and working at a station called Hardcore Sports Radio, which was under the Score Television Network umbrella. And I was a producer there for some time. I ended up producing...
Was Sid there at the time when you were there? Sid
so,
Sidero?
Yeah, so Sid was at the Score.
Okay, yeah.
And I ended up producing, actually, after I was producing for Gabe, both Tim and Sid Uncut, which would then become known as just Tim and Sid, which is a staple here in Canada, as well as the MMA show with Mauro Ranallo. I was producing that. So that was kind of my first foray into MMA. But, when I was producing for Gabe, he was big into MMA and actually was the one who really introduced me to the sport. And we had done a lot of on-location shows that I had produced where we had gotten a lot of UFC athletes to just pop by. Back then, they were so accessible. The sport was so new. And I went over to TSN. I was booking guests for Off the Record with Michael Landsberg, of course. If you're Canadian, you know Off the Record. You've been on Off the Record several times. So I was the guest booker for that for several years. TSN got the UFC rights, and the brass at UFC knew, or at TSN rather, knew I was a big UFC fan at the time. And I kept saying to them, we need to send somebody to cover this. Like, Conor McGregor's coming up, Ronda's coming up. We have the rights. Like, we should send reporters. Like, we should send one of our Sports Center anchors. Like, I wasn't putting myself forward. I was saying I'd love to help, but eventually my one of our VPs said, Aaron, you know the sport better than anybody in this building. We believe that you can be in charge of the UFC here and look after editorial, and just cover the sport as you see fit. And I said, okay, let's do it. And, I didn't really have any fears of getting in front of a camera or anything like that. I was one of those guys that as a kid was talking into microphones and doing my own radio shows at home. And, it was always something that I was comfortable with. I had done play-by-play for Brock University basketball before that.
Oh,
had
wow.
hosted some shows on Sirius XM. So I wasn't worried about being front facing, even though the bulk of the work that I'd done prior to that was behind the scenes. So really, that's how I got to where I am. It's, again, very unorthodox path to getting a job like this.
But you first went to Humber College. I do know that, right? So that's and I'm originally from Ontario, so I know what that is, right? Like that's one of the better schools for that type of thing. And so was your vision when you're coming out of college saying to yourself, "Oh, I'm going to follow this train like from the Score to this place," like did you path that out for yourself, or did you just fall in? Is that
Well, fall in makes it seem like I didn't put the work in, but I hear what you're saying.
yeah.
No, my path was very different again from everybody else's, because my thought was, I just want to have a job that's fun.
Right.
Like that was always what my mentality was. It was like, I don't need to be on air. I just want to be in this environment and work as hard as I can and do as much as I can, and see what happens. And that's really what it was. It was like, I feel like people in general, they get a little bit too tunnel vision about what they want to do. Some of them succeed at it, and others are, crushed.
Yeah.
And they can't recover from it because they can't. They're like, well, I'm sitting here in this tape room editing, and it's not what I want to do. Or I'm sitting here and I'm, writing scripts, and it's not what I want to do. And then they flame out of the business.
I worked in television 15 years ago, and I worked into an assistant producer role, and I ended up on the phone all day, and I hated it because, and that was part of my issue with that. I like the creative side. I like to be in front of the camera. I like that kind of thing. But then you kind of figure it out. And I've always kind of felt the same way where, you don't just fall into it. You're obviously working and doing the best you can and seeing where that leads you and seeing what door opens for you. So when the door opened to be in front of the camera, like you said, you're used to it as a kid, but really when the first time that goes on, do you remember where you were the first time that the red light turned on, and where you were and what you were doing, what was going on inside of your chest?
So yes, I mean, my first event was UFC 206, one of the better UFC pay-per-views, despite being on paper not super strong. That was the card that had Max Holloway against Anthony Pettis, but also had that legendary Doo Ho Choi against Cub Swanson fight. Ended up being an amazing card. I had Gastelum versus Tim Kennedy. And I remember saying to myself before I started doing all this, like, what's the thing that I can do better than everybody that's currently doing this job? And my thought was, I'm going to dress nicely, because a lot of people show up in,
so true,
t-shirts, button down and jeans, I said, I'm going to just look better than everybody, because I know I can be the best at that right out of the gate. If I dress nicely, wear nice suits, present myself professionally, I'll be a step ahead in that one facet. And the rest of it, I then will have time to catch up. But at least at that point in time, I can say, at least I'm dressed more professionally than the other people in this space. And that was something that I kind of was able to hang my hat on while the other stuff kind of fell into place.
And so, like, again, like, most people like freak out when I do a lot of filming still for things, and I interview and put people on camera, and some people hate being on camera, especially when they're being interviewed. But when the lights turn on, like I said, like, now obviously you've done it so much, but in the beginning, what was the things you had to work through to kind of get yourself to that next level? Because you're at a really high level.
Yeah. Well, it's still a work in progress, I would say. But the really good thing that I had early in my career was working with Tim McAuliffe, Sid Cicero, Gabe Morency, Mauro Ranallo, Michael Landsberg, one of the greatest interviewers in Canada, and getting to watch them hone their craft. Not to mention, of course, listening to the likes of Howard Stern and watching all of the great sportscasters growing up. Like, interviewing to me was something that I had quietly been studying for a decade before that, because of just being next to it all the time, being adjacent to great interviewers. So being able to see that and take away little things that I like from all of those different interviewers really helped me along. And I didn't put any pressure on myself when I was interviewing people. I just thought, I'm just going to be talking to another person. The camera is going to happen to be in front of me, but really I want to ask questions. And this is the most simple thing that I tell people that ask for a tip about interviewing. I say, I only want to ask questions that I don't know the answers to. And it sounds really simple, but a lot of people ask questions that they do know the answers to.
That's right.
That they just want to ask the simple question, how was this camp? Or Tell me about who's in your corner. And sometimes I'll ask those questions as a way of buying time to get to the next question.
Right.
Yeah.
Trying to
It's
find the
way to
opening.
get the gears
Yes,
moving.
absolutely.
I'll kind of throw it. It's like people take a round off. I just put a throwaway out.
But don't you think it's like that in MMA right now? Like, like I know you have to be very careful on how you just speak about certain things, and I think that most journalists in MMA have to be extremely careful because I call it the press credential strip. And it happens in hockey and it happens in NFL. It happens in not that much in NFL or Major League Baseball, but it does happen in hockey. And it happens definitely in MMA because we've had people on our show, the Josh Grosses of the world, right? And I have Ariel Helwani is still around, but he gets treated differently now, right? And I have, it's weird, but Ariel Helwani and I had huge fights back in the day, and then he brought me on his show so I could. No, we can kind of fix it. And I apologize because I was 100% wrong in this scenario because I was in the MMA world for 16 years and obsessively only cared about the MFC. I didn't give a shit about the UFC. I could care less. I never said their name. I never said Dana White's name out loud. I called him DW for 16 years. I would not say him by name. When we see each other in person, he'd want to like take pictures. And I would never take a picture with him ever. And this was my mentality. Now, did I respect what they were doing? Yes. Did I know they were the biggest in the world? Of course. I'm not an idiot. But when I saw things happen with UFC along the way, I saw certain people that were really good reporters kind of not speak the truth. Or I shouldn't say not speak the truth. They would skirt around it, right? And it's like when we talked to Josh Gross on our show, he brought up things like, oh, when Dana had the problem with his wife, what happened to all the reporters? Everybody just went like this. I'm not saying a word about that because that will cost me my even if you ask about it, even if you comment about it, that'll take away from your press credentials. And I thought to myself, that is the number one problem right now in sports. I'm not saying for you to slander anybody. I'm not saying for you to, it's not even a criticism. We got to get to the bottom of this. If this happened in NFL football, that owner would not have a team anymore. That's a fact. So, but in MMA world, it's different. And I'm okay. I'm not saying I'm okay with it, but I'm saying is no reporters are asking that question. No female fighters stood up and said, hey, I want to know why you did that, and so on and so on and so on. And I'm saying to you is, do you see that in your sport?
Yeah, for sure. And I think there is, of course, a thin line that you've got to walk in these situations because being a good reporter is all about relationships. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. Like,
that's true.
It's really important to have strong relationships so that when you are reporting on the sport, you're still able to continue to report, in a way where you're going to be able to still be on top of things and have people that are willing to speak with you as sources. But on the flip side of that, I was on vacation when that whole thing with Dana happened. And I said I saw that it had happened. And I said, oh man, like, I can't take a break here. Like Jake Paul signed with the PFL while I was on vacation. This thing happened. So, what I had written basically on social media was like, it was probably about 24 hours after the story came out, maybe a little bit less than that, which was like, I don't understand why people have an opinion on this. Like, it's never okay to hit women. And and the people that are making excuses for Dana White, like, why don't you just listen to what Dana said, which was, don't make excuses for me. There's no no excusing my behavior. So it's like, why are you making excuses when he's asking you not to make excuses?
I agree.
Yeah. And that was really all I had to say about it is like, I don't think that we need to, in addition to that, while I'm on vacation, I'm calling TBS to be like, are you guys still putting Power Slap on TV? I just to find out what they're planning on doing, because that's the news that kind of went along with it in terms of what was happening in the near future, in terms of Dana and what was going on. So I still did my job as well as I could have while I was on vacation. But I had planned on asking him about it, but the first time I got time with Dana, one-on-one time with him, was somewhat recently. Like, I think it was probably like April. So by then, it's like I'm gonna ask him about it now. It's like
that's
so
your
much
first
time has passed.
thing. The cycle's gone through.
Totally.
Yeah, but had I been one of the people that was there in Las Vegas week after week, like, I feel like you have to ask.
Yeah,
like,
I do too.
And I think a lot of people did ask. Brett Okamoto, who gets a lot of flack, I think asked probably the toughest question out of anybody. when he was at a press conference. And I don't think Dana was pleased with him as a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Brett is still doing what Brett's doing, right? So, you certainly do need to walk a fine line in terms of maintaining your relationships in the sport. But I still feel like you can report honestly and transparently, even with that in mind.
Yeah. Now, on the head of your Twitter, you said, okay, my opinions are my own. They're not in any way associated with this. Like, I know we have to have disclaimers now,
Mm-hmm.
but, to me, that kind of sums up, like, everyone, like, we all have to be, we should be careful. Like, we shouldn't just say things just, I know what gets clicks and all that kind of stuff. You can say whatever you want and you'll get a click on it. But if we're going to do real, true journalism, then where's that line now? Where can we actually just be open and honest? And where do we have to pull back? Because, I watch sports like F1. I'm a huge Formula One fan. And, and maybe that's a UK thing, but their reporting is very open. They show the ugly.
Yeah.
They let the bosses fight in front of us. And, maybe Netflix feeds into that a little bit more. But it seems like a younger generation is more used to or more excited to see a little more fireworks than maybe it has been in the past. So where do we now try to go where we're navigating the next generation of actual sports viewers?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's an amazing question. And I don't think we really know the answer yet. Like, we have a lot of people that are just putting out TikTok content or putting out viral videos, right? Like, and there's a place for that, right? Like, I don't have an issue with anybody who covers it anyway. And I think we're also really starting to pivot from like journalism to being content creators, right? Like, I think
that's right.
The people that really want to stick to like capital J journalism can still do that and still be in the same space as people that just want to have fun, do fun, quirky interviews, and do things differently. Like, there's room for all of it. And I think that we're kind of in a space where this is an a la carte world, right?
Yeah,
so
good point.
It is.
So people that want very pro UFC coverage can find it. People that want very anti UFC coverage can find it. People that want very neutral reporting can find it. There's something for everybody.
We got to use that though. We got to use that later on though. That's got to be on my Twitter later. It's an a la carte world, everybody. So don't forget that quote today, because that it's so true though. It is so true.
Hey man, I've for a long time, I talk about like a Big Mac generation where we want it fast and we want it cheap and we want it when we want it. And if we have to wait or pay more or it's done wrong, then we get pissed and we go to the other one that does it right. And you're right, like, and everyone's figured that out. And all the platforms, you can just let's clip it, and 20 seconds, and you get 1 million followers. But okay, so we don't know. We're forging ahead. Where do you feel then the UFC is now forging ahead? Because to me, watching, and I have 5 boys, I have 5 kids, and all getting in, starting to watch this kind of stuff, but they're like, Dad, this is the same it's been for as long as we can remember. All the fights seem the same. The production seems the same. What do you do next now to try to pull the UFC? And because it feels like, I don't know, to me it feels like there's not really the I'm trying to think of the word, the I don't know if the brainchild behind it is the right word to use, but it doesn't seem like they're really progressive in trying to target something else.
Yeah, because what they're doing is working for them. I mean, they're making record profits. They're selling out venues. They're making record gates. So why change something that they've got on lock right now, right? Like, there's not even a close second to the UFC in the MMA space right now.
There's not.
So as much as it is kind of cookie cutter, and you are seeing some cards that on paper are watered down, I still think that what they're doing is working for them. And they're, to me, if I was working at the UFC, what I would suggest is doing Wednesday night fights also. Just sell more content. They have enough fighters on the roster that they could do 6 fights on a Wednesday at the Apex and have fight fans in their palm twice a week.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Aaron, what's your Mount Rushmore of, like, say if I give you 5 of all time MMA, I'm talking about from the beginning to now, your 5 top 5 guys.
God, I hate this question because I always leave someone out by accident. But I'll
but you're allowed to on the Me and Jesse podcast, because that's part of it. Because there'll be a part 2 one day, and you'll be like, "Oh, okay, I forgot this person," and then you can add it on.
Hopefully
right?
There'll be someone else
because I've always said to people, people might have asked you this before, this question, but I have never asked you this question, so you have to be careful, because I know what the 5 Mount Rushmore people are. So yours might be very different.
Yours might be wrong.
There is a wrong and right answer in my opinion. But what I'm saying is some people, like they've said their version. I'm like, oh my God, like this person has no clue. But I think you would have a clue.
All right. So when you say Mount Rushmore, you're like the 5 greatest in terms of like.
Listen, I am saying the 5 greatest. I'm right.
Okay. Well, because Mount Rushmore was more of founding fathers, wasn't it?
Well, founding fathers, but just for the term, I want to see the 5 top, the 5 top that you think, that you believe are the 5 top of all time.
All right, so there's 3 who should be a mortal lock on every Mount Rushmore, which are John Jones, GSP, and Anderson Silva. And then you go from there. So, I mean, that's why these water cooler debates happen, is like, if you don't have one of those people on, you're kind of out of the debate. Like, there's not really a reason to talk to you. You're just trying to be, you're just trying to be controversial.
Yeah.
So then you have to fill those last 2.
Yeah.
And for me, I would put Demetrius Johnson up there. I know that's kind of an, a little bit of a weird pick.
Boring, but I think you're right.
But I can defend it if I need to.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the 5th one, the 5th one, a lot of people would put Fedor on it. I wouldn't.
Me neither.
The 5th one, I'm for sure gonna forget someone. You're gonna be like, "What about this guy?" And I'm gonna be like,
"No. I know who should be on no matter what."
So let's go Demetrius. And if we're talking greatest of all time, man, like it's a tough question, honestly. I'm trying to think because again, I'm worried I'm gonna miss somebody. You could put Khabib up there, but I just feel like the resume is not long enough.
Huh.
That's always my issue with Khabib.
Yeah,
is the resume is not long enough.
Really?
I don't know. The 5th one is usually it's 3. But there's 5 heads on Mount Rushmore, so it's 5.
What's wrong with people of your generation that don't see Royce Gracie? Like what the hell's wrong with what is wrong with people? Like they're scared to say it. They're scared to say Royce Gracie for some reason because he was at a time when literally morphosized MMA. Like it was insane the what he did to MMA at the time. See, I was in MMA in 1999. Okay, so I was in it at that time. I saw people like Anderson Silva. Like I had dinner with Anderson Silva, right? And that was at a time when everybody was saying he can't speak English. His English was better than mine at that time. So I thought it was so funny because my son and I were having dinner with him and Ed Soares, and we had like a 3-hour dinner, and he was speaking English the whole entire time. But the difference with Anderson Silva was he had this aura when he walked. Like he was just like, it was weird. It was like he had this like weird aura where everywhere he walked, he just floated. But his fighting style was so amazing because he made great fighters look ridiculous. And that's what I noticed. And Royce Gracie, so it went like Royce, and it went to Demetrius Johnson. I agree, is a great fighter.
Aldo would probably be my 5th. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'd probably put Aldo up there at number 5. But
where does
I
DC
understand
rank in there?
I'm not saying another word on this podcast.
Where does DC rank in there, though?
Who DC?
Yeah.
DC's not on the Mount Rushmore.
Not even close.
Not there.
No,
it's great.
I agree.
What's with the hate of DC, though? I love DC.
Oh, me too. I love DC also. I think.
Listen, but after Connor knocks out Aldo in 8 seconds, 13 seconds. That takes him off the Mount Rushmore. It does. It takes him immediately.
But then why isn't Anderson off the Mount Rushmore when Anderson's gotten creamed like 10 times in the last 12 fights?
Do you think it was because he was bored?
Anderson or Aldo?
No, Anderson.
Anderson was
bored. Think he was old. I just think he got old.
You think it was like because
he got old and the game caught up with him? I mean, he's a striking-based fighter, and the game kind of caught up with him. And his timing, when you get older. First off, a lot of people don't understand when Anderson came to the UFC, he was 32 or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
He was old, right? So that's what makes him a Mount Rushmore, is because that run was like past his prime. Like it continued past his prime, right? But I like your Royce answer, and the reason why is because if you take this sport and you go back to the very embryonic stage of it, like people weren't training in MMA. People were just training to see who's like training and honing their craft. And like you've got this guy who's 170 pounds soaking wet, beating up all these dudes who are like high 200-pound guys.
Yeah,
it was just about like who, like if you.
What is this?
Basically, old style MMA like UFC 1 or whatever might as well just be a movie. Like,
yeah.
You're taking all these
it's
folks
good.
from all over the world, putting them in a
Totally.
cage and saying like, who wins? Who's the toughest, best guy? And
Totally.
Hoist was that guy, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like,
But the
you can put
philosophy
Hoist
of
on the Mount Rushmore.
but what about the philosophy of the Gracies when they knew that at that time Horion was was so much better and they had better guys, and they said, no, we're going to put Hoist in because he's the most meek. They used the word meek, and he's the lightest, and he's soft, and he's not going to be too violent with people. And his brothers were way more violent, right? And they said, no, we're going to put Hoist in. And then he goes in there and does what he does. And it's literally, it's almost sad sometimes when I see him hanging out at Bellator now, and he's just sitting there and people are walking by him. And I'm like, are you kidding, man? Listen, I was in the game since 1999, and I was at the highest level in this country as you could be. And I still, to this day, feel sorry for, and he's a multi-gazillionaire. He has everything. But I see him sometimes standing at Bellator, and he's just kind of like hanging out, and people are walking by, have no clue who he is. And I'm like, really? Like, do you understand? Like, that's the part of the world, whether it be hockey, whether it be football.
On the mountain.
You can't forget those guys. You can't. You have to. If you're teaching jiu-jitsu anywhere in the world or MMA, you have to bring his name up. If you're and the Anderson Silvas of the world and the GSPs of the world, like GSP's in his 40s now. And 10 years from now, he's not on the Mount Rushmore anymore. That's what happens in life, and it's sad.
Yeah,
because
it's true. It's recency bias, right?
Correct.
That's basically what it is. So who would your number 5 be then? Like, you've got Hoist, and who else?
I like the GSP. I like the Anderson Silva. I like the John Jones. I like Hoist Gracie. And then I would like, oh man, there's so many I met and spoke with. So I feel horrible because I liked all of them. So I would have 5 A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but that you're right. It's
that's
tough.
why I had trouble giving you an answer.
And
right?
I agree. I agree.
After those 3, it's like, here, you can pick names out of a hat.
And I would never put, and I like Fedor, and I love, and I'm one of the few people that like certain guys, but I wouldn't put him on the Mount Rushmore. I just wouldn't. I don't think he ever faced the best competition in their prime. I love your Anderson Silva answer about how he did come in late. Lucky he wasn't in the UFC in his 20s, because he would have absolutely killed people. Like he would have,
Okay, so
and, the thing with Fedor that gets me is like, he lost to like a 207-pound Dan Henderson when he was in his prime. Like, he was like 34, which is like prime years for a heavyweight.
Correct.
Got knocked out in the first round by like a dude who was a natural middleweight. Like,
yes,
I can't overlook these things. Like, because like if he was 41 or something, I can overlook it. Then I can say, well, he was that was his time and his chin was gone. He was like 34 or 35. He's younger than Dan Henderson.
That's who's next? Who's next? Who's the guy?
Yeah, who is next?
Because I don't know.
Khamzat Chimaev is certainly somebody, if he can continue to do what he's doing, will be in the conversation. He's the guy right now that I just think has like limitless upside. But we'll have to see. I don't know what his visa, to be honest, I don't know what his visa situation is. Like, Dana White said that he can fight in the States, but like, why is he sitting out 13 months? Like, the guy's
weird, eh? It
like
is
29
weird.
or 30 and like wants to fight every week, but he's sitting out for months.
Did Gilbert Burns expose him a little bit though? A little bit?
No, I just think he got to a level, right? Like when you're beating people up that are a lower level than you, you're eventually going to get to the level where you're competitive. And I thought that was Gilbert Burns gives everybody a tough go.
But I think he struggles. I think he struggles when he goes up to 185 and he faces the top 3 sharks in 185. I don't think he's going to even remotely roll over any of those guys. And I don't think his stand-up is like what people think. I think what Dana did and the matchmakers of the UFC did to get him to this point are fantastic. But we will see him tested, because he was tested against a smaller Gilbert Burns, and he did struggle against him. And I don't know. Like I said, like Jesse said earlier too, the reason why they bring back the Connors of the world, it's like they're doing that for a reason. I mean, they're bringing these guys back because they don't have that. They don't have those guys. They have a ton of great fighters. That's not the problem. They just, let's be honest, MMA has always been like that. It's when it comes to for skill wise, it's an A+. When it comes to personalities, not so much. You know what I mean? It's like you can count them on one hand. There was a reason why I was off the record 7 or 8 times back in the day, because in the MMA world, not too many people spoke out loud. Dana White did, and no one else spoke. As you looked at the suits, when you said, I need something, you looked at the suits. When I was in the MMA world and making money in the MMA world, I thought to myself, what should I be? And I said, I'm going to be the defiant little brother. And that's going to be my MO. And I was the defiant little brother. And I made up all these little funny things that people wanted to interview me all the time because of that. But I don't see anybody else trying. I've seen some people try to act like Connor or try to act like, and they're doing a really bad job of it. Like the Colby, the Colby Covington,
like Connor can't, like
it's horrible.
It's not organic.
Yeah, no. Like Colby Covington, I think he's horrible. Like I don't care. His skill level is super high, but like to say he's cringeworthy is an understatement. Like like the second he starts to speak, I turn the volume down. Like I'm like, it's horrendous. Like his trash talk is not even like you ask anybody else Colby, they'll tell you the truth about him in real life. He's like the sweetest, nicest guy in the world. He's like super sweet, doesn't trash talk anybody, walks very meekly along the gym. Like that's who he is in real life. The second the camera comes on, he makes this fake persona up. And we all know
but
it's
that's
fake.
what we're saying, because we kind of like we're saying like, hey,
I've been around the real Colby, and you're 100% right.
Yeah, it's like
he's of a guy.
He's meek. The word is meek. Like he doesn't even talk.
Obviously there's talent, and which should be the thing, but because we could argue that Conor McDavid's dry as dry toast. So, but he's amazing. But in this world, in fight world, there needs to be some flair. It seems to actually get people to be on your side, to want you to fight, to want you to get those shots. So is there someone that can do it that's currently in the roster?
Yeah, Israel. I mean, Israel is as real as just about anybody in MMA that we've seen. He doesn't try to be something he's not. In fact, he's very much, resists any type of urge to be something he's not. He just is himself. He's a great interview. Anytime I've interviewed him, he's phenomenal. He's honest. And if you ask him bad questions, they'll give you bad answers. But if you ask him good questions, they'll give you great answers. And those are the kind of people that I love interviewing. Yeah. So, I think Israel is about as authentic as it comes right now in MMA.
Does it matter if you're authentic though, or because Mark and I were talking about this about the show. Like, I'm one way. When the camera turns on, I unlock this part of me that I can do, and it's camera Jesse. But in my real world, like I struggle with things, and it's hard for me to keep that level. So, not that I don't think the same way or whatever, but there is a part of the show that matters. I think anyway. So
I think it's just to sort of cut you off, but I think you have to be very much in either direction. You either have to be really authentic or really inauthentic. Like I think that anything in between, where people can sense that you're trying to be, that something's stopping you from being authentic, that's the zone you don't want to be in. Like Colby Covington, like you said, is kind of like completely inauthentic.
I see.
And he's made that his shtick, and now he's getting a title shot out of it. Like him or not, most people don't. But I think that's what you have to do. You have to be either really your authentic self, or you have to be really inauthentic, and you can't be a hypocrite.
But Aaron, I feel sorry for Colby, because I knew who he was. I don't listen. We all forget how he was. How many MMA fights ago he didn't say one word.
Yeah, but would we be talking about him? Would we be talking about him today if he wasn't doing that?
But what I'm saying though is he was forced to do it. He was going to lose his contract.
But it doesn't matter. I know exactly. So that's my point.
But that's what I'm saying. It's so bizarre now, because it's not just about talent in the fighting. Same with boxing. Boxing and MMA very similar when it comes to that. You just can't. But it seems like in MMA you can actually talk your way into certain scenarios, and that's an ongoing trend that's probably never going to stop. Because they want you to call out people. They want you to talk crap about the guy that you want to fight next. And if you watch after someone gets interviewed, 9 out of 10 times, that's who they're fighting next,
Yeah, like if they're in the cage afterwards and they say, I want to fight this guy. Yeah. I mean, the worst thing you can do is not have a name prepared for if you're going to win.
Exactly.
That should be part of your basic training for your fight. It's like, who do you want to fight next, and have a name in front of you.
Have that name ready, because it's going to get asked, and you better
That's true. Aaron, I watched you commentate too. This is another thing, because I know you weren't like a commentator, but I watched you commentate unified MMA. And I thought you did about an A- job, which is very high. which is huge for your
giving
first.
grades out.
Yeah, for my second show, it's not bad.
For your second show, right? I'm like, now, do you see yourself doing that for Unified MMA, Unified Boxing, or other organizations? Other organizations? If so, do you see yourself doing that?
I hope so. I love it. Like it's my favorite thing in the world is to be doing this commentary. Like that's what I wanted to do when I first started out. Like I was doing commentary for basketball, doing play-by-play. And I just loved it.
Do you like play-by-play or color more?
I like play-by-play. I couldn't do color commentary because I'm not qualified to do color commentary. Something that a lot of people won't say, but I can't. I mean, the
right.
thing I'm doing right now for Unified is kind of a hybrid role because I'm adding color to it, which is sort of a color commentary is, but I couldn't be an analyst. Like if you said, if someone was sitting next to me and they're like, Aaron, what are they trying to set up here? Like I could try. And from watching MMA for all this time, I would probably know.
I couldn't do that at all.
But I wouldn't be able to give you a really educated account of what someone's trying to set up, how they're doing it, the mechanics behind it. It's just I don't have the qualifications. And I'm happy to admit that. And I think that a lot of people are hesitant to admit that. But what I'm doing right now for Unified is great. I would love to also do play-by-play at some point in time. I think it would be a lot of fun. I think I'd be very good at it. I mean, hey, if you're giving me an A- after my second show, that means I've got room for growth. I would have preferred you gave me a B, to be honest, but I'll take the A-.
No, actually, Mark and I commentated a fight and
boxing. We did a boxing, like a pay-per-view boxing event. People called us up because of the podcast and said, "Hey, can you guys do a boxing event?" And I said, "Sure, we can, but you got to pay us a bunch of money, or we're not going to do it."
You're going to do play-by-play for this boxing event. Never done it before. I mean,
I need you to be my agent, Mark. That's what we need.
Yeah. People always offer me stuff, but if I'm so uncomfortable doing so many things. So I said, to be comfortable, you have to pay me a lot of money. And if you pay me a lot of money, I'll be really comfortable. And then it was easy to talk about boxing because I love boxing and I love MMA more, but I can talk about those type of things. But if you said tomorrow, Mark, commentate a hockey game, it would be impossible for me. Like it would like I like hockey, but I don't have the qualifications to talk about hockey.
Talking for 3 hours straight wasn't. I mean, I did it, but we didn't have people to cut to or interviews to cut to. It was It was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, we do it for like 4 or 5 hours straight for Unified, and it seems like it goes by in 20 minutes for me. That's how it feels.
But you see that being part, like, so, okay, now you have your TSN gig. Now, do you see that a section of your life going into that?
Again, I try not to be
back to the top.
I try not to predict these things. I try to just let them come to me, but I would love it. I mean, I'll just say that, like, if there were more opportunities like that, please, like, sign me up. I
well, a lot. The reason why I'm asking, because a lot of people eventually watch this show. So what happens is it plays live, and then as people are driving home, they start watching the show, and you would get lots of views, and we got subscribers. And what happens is this is a very good luck show, as Jesse can attest to. We've had Cyril Gann on this show talking about how he wanted a title shot, and I said, Cyril, say it 3 times, rub the lamp, and it happened. Did it not, Jesse?
It happened.
And then
multiple. I just so happen to have a lamp behind me here. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but that's what happens on it. We've had guys from the NFL, that have been on our show, and they want to play for certain teams, and they came on, and I said, if you say it a few times, it usually happens on our podcast, because I let this episode. And I tag people in the episodes, and I tag them on Instagram. I tag them on TikTok.
If you haven't noticed, Mark's relentless with this.
Yes. So the trick is, I want you to be ultra successful because I tag you with the intelligence tag. So now you're intelligent. Now take that intelligence and exercise it to the max. You know what I mean? But like I said, I compare you actually to Ariel Helwani, because Ariel is extremely intelligent. He's very knowledgeable, and he does his homework. So you're very similar in that aspect. So you should capitalize on it, and there's no sin on capitalizing on your traits.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And I think, Ariel to me is one of the great probably the best interview we've had in combat sports ever.
I agree.
He's phenomenal at it. I was watching one of his interviews the other day, and I'm just like, every time I watch one of his interviews, I'm just
what is it that really sets, like, for you, what jumps out to you? What do you like? Wow, I can't believe, like, that was amazing.
He's just great at asking follow-up questions, and he's so conversational. He's just so natural. I mean, really, he's a natural. And I mean, I'm sure it took time for him to get there.
Yeah.
But in terms of just being conversational and having great follow-up questions, and
Correct. Yeah.
you know, he's walked me through what his preparation is for an interview, and he never has questions pre-prepared. He just goes into it and feeds off of the answers of his subjects. That's really what a great interviewer does. You know, I'm the same way. I don't usually have, unless I'm asking an interview where I have really like questions that I need to ask.
Right.
And it's a very focused subject. I typically go into an interview having just watched a lot of content, done a lot of homework, and then through osmosis, it ends up sticking with me, and I'm able to ask about it.
That's what Jesse does. So I'm the preparer, I'm the researcher, and then Jesse is that would wreck him. That would wreck Jesse. If Jesse had to do,
not good.
Yeah, he would not do that. So he ends up getting to the point of where he wants to know exactly who you are, and 6 months from now he's going to bring up your name on a podcast with someone that's in the NFL and make a quote that you said 6 months ago. Like, that's how he is. You know what I mean? Like, and that's, to me, is like, that's why it's called the Me and Jesse podcast. I am the me, he is the Jesse.
Well, that's always the way that a lot of really successful duos have done it. Like Tim and Sid was the same way.
Really?
I think, yeah, Tim and Sid, like Tim was a research hound, like just researching all day. And Sid was very much emotion, gut.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. Like, I know they got split up, and I was so disappointed because I thought their show was fantastic. And then Sid is over at Breakfast Television. I watch him every morning. And I think to myself, oh, it kind of like makes me mad that he's at Breakfast Television and not doing sports.
Bigger audience, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if
maybe
you would know, Aaron.
I don't know.
It might be bigger, but I'm not sure. But I just always thought like he should be in sports. You know what I mean? And even Gabe Morency. I mean, I've been interviewed by him 20 times, and I just think Gabe is as rough as they come, but he knows sports.
Gabe was a big researcher too, and you would this wouldn't surprise you if you saw it, but he would have like printer paper and like a Sharpie and like big writing, like that's how he did his research.
That's what Mark did.
Yeah,
that's what I do.
Yeah, that's how Gabe researches.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way.
You hear a Sharpie, you're on the phone. You hear that.
And you know what I think too? I think Mike. You know what I do? I say this all the time too. I think Michael Landsberg is not just in Canada. I think if he was in the States, he would have been like beyond gigantic. You know what I mean? Like I think Landsberg, like it's funny, when he was on our show, he was fantastic. But when I did his show, there was times when I was in the green room in the back, and he knew, like he was just very good with me every time. And what I'm saying is like I think it's weird, as Canadians, we're scared to like prop up our other Canadians. It's like
we don't want them to be too big. We like them successful. We don't want them
not too big,
status,
too big, and I think Aaron, I think you have to break that. You have to be too big. And I think it's a shame that the Landsbergs of the world weren't bigger. And it was like, even Gabe, I know Gabe's crazy and he looks, he could, sometimes he borderline looks homeless, but he is so knowledgeable when it comes to sports, and he's super prepared. Every time I've done stuff with him, he knew things about me, and it was great. But I'm so sick of Canadians thinking, hey, why can't we just be big?
Landsberg would have killed it in the States, and I think that is the thing that gave him a ceiling in Canada. Was he was too much like you, Mark. He was honest. He was in your face, and he was not afraid to ask any questions. And
but he had to answer
away from that. They don't like confrontation.
But they had to answer to someone. Like, same with you. You work for TSN. It's one of the biggest sports networks in Canada. There's a certain limit to what you can say and not say. When I was in the MMA world for 16 years, I didn't use one word of profanity ever in an interview. Not one. Not the S word, not the hell, not the F word. Now that we have our own podcast and we have advertisers, we do. But our advertisers understand, if I want to drop the F-bomb when I'm really mad, I do now. And if I want to, say what I want to say, I say it now. And our advertisers are okay with it because they understand it's coming from a place of truth. And sometimes I have to inject that word.
Well, that's something about the internet too, because the internet now, there was one platform then. When Landsberg was doing it, there was one thing. That's turned on the TV for all of the information, really. I mean, obviously there's the internet, but it's not like it is today. Now we have every source, like you said at the beginning. There's a chamber for everything, And back then there wasn't, so you couldn't say that stuff. Now, if you want to hear something profanity-laced, you can. If you want to hear something clean and squeaky, you can do that too.
That's right.
But,
That's right.
you know, this is where we are. And I mean, I like it, but, you know, because there's still people that do all of that. And we need to create a space for all of them.
Yeah, you know, and I just imagine how Landsberg would have done if he was around, like if he was doing what he did
Right
back
now.
then. Now,
Yeah.
just being able to do long form interviews,
Yes.
as opposed to 8 minutes, 9 minutes, like
Was it an
would
hour
have.
show or was it a half-hour show?
He's an exceptional talent,
Oh,
a brilliant guy, and the nicest guy I've had the pleasure of working
I
with.
totally
in this
agree.
I
industry.
said I
One of the
compared him
best guys
to
you'll ever meet.
to Ron McLean and Michael Landsberg in the same sentence. He's like, dude, like really? And I'm like,
Yeah, when
100%.
when Jesse did that on the show, he was like freaked out by it. Like he was like, no, you know, putting him in the same sentence. But if I lived in Toronto, I have weekly coffees with people, and I have monthly coffees with people. You know, like the first Thursday of every month, I have a coffee with a certain individual. If I lived in Toronto, I would have that set up with Michael Landsberg. He would be one of the people I would have coffee with once a month, just to catch up. 12 times a year, I would set that up with him, and because he's that guy.
I should be doing that, to be honest. Like I should just be calling him. He's
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because as men,
how
He
we
lives, he lives 40 minutes from me, so maybe
that's
that's why.
insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. I don't know why you wouldn't say, Michael, let's have coffee once a month at this time when you're like, hopefully
don't make
you're
it a thing.
available.
Just say once. Just go
Yeah.
for coffee. Don't make it a thing because that bugs
All
me
right.
too.
Yes, he's like that. But I'm locked in with guys a year in advance. It's crazy. But those people I sit with, we don't talk about MMA. We don't talk about boxing. We talk about, you know, other things. And the point I'm trying to make is, if you have that kind of knowledge around you, I would just be around it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you have to go there and like, hey, Michael, tell me how you did this or tell me how you did that. No, I just want to. I just want to understand like the person, right? And listen, spending an hour today with Aaron, I know something different about you now. But I understand that, you know, for a guy that looks like you know, I got my glasses on and I'm really I saw something in you halfway during the interview where I see a guy full of drive. I see a guy that he's not going to talk about it, but when the end result comes, we'll all remember. You know what I mean? Like you're not the guy to go, hey, wait till you see what I do, but it's in your mind, and I see that, and that's
and that might hamper my career. That I'm
I
not.
agree.
I know a lot of people like to speak things into existence. This is not. It never worked for me.
Me
Like
either.
for me, what's always worked is just working hard, keeping my head down, and doing what I'm best at, and getting better and better at it until the next thing comes along, right? So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, hey, if you want me to say out loud that I would love to do more play-by-play for mixed martial arts, I'll say it out loud. It's something I would love to do.
Definitely.
But it's not something that I'm banging down doors to, and you know, calling people and trying to get them on the phone for, hey, you know, give me a shot here.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that it's organic, but
Yes,
maybe
I
that
like
hampers me. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, I do. I agree because I think to me that speaks to a deeper issue, which is, I mean, a deeper great thing is your character. And to me, that's what I really see when I watch people on screen. I feel it a little bit, even if it's a show, even if there's something that you know when there's something a little more genuine and you can feel it and you know they didn't probably have to stab 14 people in the back to get where they are. I appreciate that approach to things, and I really appreciate you, Aaron, for talking about that, and I really hope and wish you the best success because I mean you on screen is what I feel I want to see more of on all sources of media in the coming years.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I hope you're right. That would be awesome. You know, I'm always happy to do more work and have fun, and again, as long as the jobs are fun.
Yes.
That's really what has always been my MO. My grandfather, may he rest in peace, once said to me, if you can make your vacation your vocation, then you're doing something right. So that's sorry, your vocation your vacation. If you can make your vocation your vacation, you're doing something right. So that's always stuck with me, and I always took those words to heart. And my grandfather's, you know, a hero to me, Holocaust survivor, one of the greatest men I've ever known.
Wow.
So you know, anything that he ever said to me, if I could hold on to that and take it with me through my career, then I definitely will. So I appreciate you, Jesse, for saying that as well. That's, you know, I actually had a conversation with somebody recently who just recently also kind of became a front-facing person, like a broadcaster, from being behind the scenes. And she said to me, like, I said to you, you're really good at this. You're doing a great job. And she said, well, I never really wanted to do this because I wasn't willing to play politics and step on people to get to where I wanted to be. It's just, that wasn't who I was.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a real nobility in that. And I appreciate people like that because, again, I think Landsberg is a good example for me also. Like, again, the sweetest guy, just worked hard, kept his head, put his head down, was great at what he did. And I think that's my approach to the business. It might not be the same for everybody else.
Right.
It's not a one size fits all, but that's the way that I've always approached it.
And that's who we're responsible for is ourselves. So I like that a lot. Well, Aaron, I thank you so much for joining us tonight. Man, it goes so fast when you're having a good conversation with people. But again, thank you for joining us on the Me and Jesse podcast. And where's the next time we can see you, and what's your next event you have coming up?
Well, I would have liked to be in your backyard, Mark, in 2 weeks, but I'm going to be in Vancouver for UFC 289.
Okay,
Calgary was very close to landing that card.
Yeah,
there was like a scheduling conflict at the arena. I don't know if it was because the Flames were going to be in the playoffs or obviously that they flamed out, unfortunately.
Ooh,
very much intended.
That's Jesse's team.
But I'll be covering that. And you can check out all of my work in one place, aaron.report. www.aaron.report is like a link to all of the different things that I do.
And we'll make sure we put that on our Facebook page for everybody to kind of link with you and to get to know who you are, because at our podcast, we want you to be number one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope this is the most listened to podcast that you've ever done. Hey, although if it is, you probably aren't doing something right. I'm sure you've had bigger guests than me in the past. So, but if it is, hey, more power to us.
Conversations, but very few to this level of conversation, in my opinion.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to do it anytime.
Good. Well, thanks so much once again for joining us, and have yourself a great night. We'll look forward to seeing you again.
You too, guys. Thanks for the invite.
Bye.
Spring is here. It's time to shed those coats and get smooth for all the fun ahead. Heading to the beach or just enjoying the sun, Backscape is the answer to a smooth, bump and cut-free spring. Worried about asking for help? Fear not. You can effortlessly make you smooth without assistance. And guess what? Their new subscription service sends you fresh precision shaving heads straight to your door. Subscribe, save, and stay smooth all season long. So don't wait and get Backscape today and enjoy the smoothness of spring.
Aaron Bronsteter, everybody, TSN reporter, analyst on the show today. Fantastic. I really think he's like there's something about smart people in sports that attract me.
There's something about people that aren't willing to bend off who they are.
Yes.
And whatever that is, and I understand not everyone's personality is going to jive with everyone's personality. Some people are going to hate me, some people are going to hate you, and that's fine. That's fine. But unapologetically who you are, unapologetically who I am, that's just
right.
it.
That's
and
right.
I think that's the important thing, and I like that, because that to me, it's not hidden. You're not trying to hide it. You're not trying to hide it.
You're right.
Hidden.
You're right.
I don't like that person, or I like this person too much, or anything like that. You let that kind of happen naturally, and that's what I really appreciate. So thanks once again, Aaron, for joining us on the show.
And everybody, check out Backscape today. Our dear sponsors at Backscape. Listen, the summer's coming, guys. Do I have to give you the tutorial on how crappy back hair looks on you? like if your wife's too shy to tell you, I'm here to tell you. Please, everybody, go to backscape.com. You've seen the logo on our podcast. Check out their website. They have a subscription basis now. You can go to them. The product is fantastic. At all levels. You can check out their Google reviews. You can check out everything. I mean, it's top shelf stuff, and you need to get one today, guys. And you can also use it for the front, the back, everywhere. So it really does work great. And check out Crystal Glass, your clear choice for all your glass needs. Go to crystalglass.ca or go to 310 Glass.
Well, thanks for watching, everybody, once again on the Me and Jesse podcast. Hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. And you know what? Tell someone that they're nice today. Do that. Thanks once again, Aaron, for joining us. And that's Mark Pavlich. I'm Jesse Martineau. This has been the Me and Jesse podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching the Me and Jesse podcast. Follow us at facebook.com/Me and Jesse. Thanks for watching the Me and Jesse podcast. Follow us at facebook.com/Me and Jesse. Thanks for watching the Me and Jesse podcast. Follow us at facebook.com/Me and Jesse.